room after appearing to injure his right hamstring. Now,
of course, have had their share of injuries all season long, including their stars. Looked like he came down on that ankle, landing on Giannis's foot. Yep. So we'll take.
It's a two-point field goal. Gathers his feet. The question is, was his toe on the line? And it looks like from that angle, it was on the line. Still a beautiful shot by Durant. Off balance, fading away, Tucker in his face, and able to concentrate and step up and knock down that shot.
Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden. 3 future Hall of Famers, 3 of the greatest offensive players of their generation, all wearing the same jersey. On paper, the Brooklyn Nets had built something terrifying, a team with enough scoring, enough star power, and enough individual talent to potentially dominate the NBA. But here's the crazy part. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden played just 16 regular season games together as teammates. Injuries, availability, controversy, trades, and one shoe size separated a potential dynasty from becoming one of the biggest what-ifs in NBA history. So, what really happened to the Brooklyn Nets? To understand how the super team fell apart, we first have to understand why Brooklyn built it in the first place. The Nets already learned the dangers of chasing superstars the hard way. Back in 2013, Brooklyn made one of the most aggressive trades in NBA history, acquiring aging stars Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce from Boston. The move was supposed to turn the Nets into immediate contenders. Instead, it helped Boston build its future while Brooklyn eventually had to rebuild without control of several valuable draft picks. But slowly, Brooklyn recovered. Under general manager Sean Marks, the Nets developed young talent, found overlooked players, and eventually returned to the playoffs. The 2018 through 19 Nets weren't championship contenders, but they were young, fun, and competitive, and most importantly, they had created a destination. Then, everything changed. In the summer of 2019, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving agreed to join the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie was already an NBA champion, one of the most gifted ball handlers and shot creators basketball had ever seen. Durant was a 2-time Finals MVP, and when healthy, arguably the most unstoppable scorer in the sport. There was one major problem. Durant had ruptured his Achilles during the 2019 NBA Finals. Brooklyn knew he would miss the entire following season. So the first year of the Durant-Irving era wasn't really about competing for a championship. It was about waiting for Durant to recover, waiting for the roster to come together, and waiting to see what Brooklyn had actually built. When Durant finally returned for the 2021 season, he looked like Kevin Durant. The Achilles injury hadn't taken away the shooting, it had taken away the size, and somehow one of basketball's most devastating injuries hadn't stopped him from looking like one of the best players alive. And Kyrie was still Kyrie. The handles, the finishing, the impossible shot making, and apparently 2 superstars weren't enough. After a messy ending in Houston, James Harden was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. Now stop and think about this. Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden. 3 players who can create their own shot. 3 players who could take over a game. 3 players defenses were already terrified of guarding individually. Were now teammates? And almost immediately, you could see why the rest of the league was worried. In Harden's first game as a Net, he recorded a triple-double. Durant scored 42 points that same game, and Brooklyn immediately looked like an offensive cheat code. There was legit defensive questions. The roster had sacrificed depth to acquire Harden, but offensively, good luck. So as a defender, what you gonna do? Double Durant or let Kyrie get space? Trap James Harden? Now Durant is attacking a 4-on-3. Switch on everything? Congratulations, now one of the greatest isolation scorers ever has gotten the matchup he wanted. When all three were available, Brooklyn looked exactly like everyone feared. And in the first round of the 2021 playoffs, Boston got the full experience. Durant attacked, Kyrie created, and Harden controlled the offense. In Game 4, Durant, Irving, and Harden combined for 104 points. I'ma say it again, 104. Brooklyn eliminated Boston in 5 games, and heading into the second round going up against Milwaukee, the championship looked very, very real. Then, 47 seconds into Game 1.
Has just gone to the locker room after appearing to injure his right hamstring. Now keep in mind,
James Harden grabbed his hamstring and walked off the floor. "47 seconds. That's how long Brooklyn's Big Three lasted together in their biggest playoff series. James Harden was done for the night, but somehow Brooklyn didn't blink. Durant and Kyrie took control. Brooklyn won Game 1, then in Game 2, they embarrassed Milwaukee. 39 points. That's how badly Brooklyn beat the team that would eventually become NBA champions. Without James Harden, Brooklyn was still up 2-0. And suddenly the question wasn't whether the Nets could survive, it was whether Milwaukee could. But the series was about to change again. The Bucks survived Game 3, then came Game 4.
The Nets, of course, have had their share of injuries all season long, including their stars.
It looked like he came down on that ankle, landing on Giannis's foot. Yep.
Kyrie Irving attacked the rim, landed on Giannis Antetokounmpo's foot, and injured his ankle. First Harden, now Kyrie. The super team had become Kevin Durant. With the series tied at 2 games apiece, Brooklyn desperately needed Game 5. James Harden returned but clearly wasn't himself. He was playing through the hamstring injury. Kyrie was still unavailable, which meant Brooklyn needed something extraordinary from Durant. And they got it. 49 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists, and he played every single minute. It was one of the greatest playoff performances of Kevin Durant's career, and somehow Brooklyn was one win away from the Eastern Conference Finals. Milwaukee would go on to win Game 6. June 19th, 2021, Brooklyn, Game 7. Everything the Nets had built came down to one night. Kyrie still couldn't play, Harden was playing hurt, Durant was carrying an enormous workload, and still, Brooklyn had a chance. With seconds remaining in regulation, the Nets trailed by 2. Durant turned and rose over PJ Tucker.
Now Jeff Green gets it into Durant. Here is Durant moving on Tucker. He turns, he shoots. Yes!
A beautiful shot by Durant.
Game tied because Kevin Durant's foot was on the three-point line. Move that foot back a few inches and Brooklyn advances to the Eastern Conference Finals. Instead, the game went to overtime. Durant had already played nearly the entire game. His final shot came short, and Milwaukee survived. Kevin Durant finished with 48 points, the most ever scored in a Game 7 at the time. Milwaukee went on to win the championship, and Brooklyn went home. At the time, it felt heartbreaking, but not catastrophic. After all, Brooklyn still had Durant, Kyrie, and Harden. Surely they'd get another chance. They didn't. Brooklyn entered the 2022 season still looking like a championship contender, but this time the biggest problems weren't happening during games. New York City's COVID-19 rules created a major issue for Kyrie Irving, who had chosen not to receive the vaccine required at the time for many workers at indoor venues. That meant he couldn't play home games in Brooklyn. Initially, the Nets decided they didn't want Kyrie participating only part-time, so he was kept away from the team. Think about that for a second. Brooklyn had assembled arguably the most talented offensive trio in basketball, and one of them wasn't playing. That put even more responsibility on Durant and Harden, and as injuries and absences piled up, the situation became increasingly unstable. Eventually, Brooklyn reversed course and allowed Irving to return for road games, but by then, the season already felt different, and James Harden apparently felt it too. Less than 13 months after acquiring him, Brooklyn traded James Harden to Philadelphia, and that was it. The Durant, Irving, Harden era was over. 3 offensive superstars, one of the most feared rosters ever assembled on paper, and Durant, Irving, and Harden started just 16 regular season games together. Not 16 playoff games, 16 regular season games. Brooklyn still had Kevin Durant, they still had Kyrie Irving, so the championship dream wasn't dead. Then Boston happened. The same Celtics team Brooklyn had overwhelmed 1 year earlier now had the defense, size, and discipline to make Durant and Irving miserable. Boston's switch helped pressure Durant and attack Brooklyn's weaknesses. The Nets were swept. No championship, no conference finals, not even a playoff win. And after that, the entire project began unraveling. During the 2022 offseason, Durant requested a trade. He eventually returned, but the message was obvious. Brooklyn's foundation was cracking. Ironically, for a stretch the following season, Brooklyn started looking dangerous again. Durant and Irving were healthy, the Nets began winning, and maybe, just maybe, there was something left. Then, Kyrie requested a trade. Brooklyn sent Irving to the Dallas Mavericks, and days later, Kevin Durant was traded to the Phoenix Suns. In less than 2 years, Brooklyn went from Durant, Kyrie, and Harden to none of them. So, what really happened to the Brooklyn Nets? How does a team with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden fail to win a championship? The easy answer is that the experiments failed. And technically, it did. Brooklyn never reached the NBA Finals, they never reached the Conference Finals, and the 3 superstars they built everything around were gone by 2023. But that doesn't explain what actually happened. There wasn't one reason Brooklyn failed. It was a perfect storm. James Harden injured his hamstring at almost the worst possible moment. Kyrie Irving injured his ankle in the same playoff series. Kevin Durant was left carrying an enormous workload and still came inches away from potentially sending Brooklyn to the conference finals. Then came availability problems, injuries, changing roles, frustration, and eventually trade requests. Harden wanted out, Durant eventually wanted out, and Kyrie's relationship with the organization deteriorated, and a championship window that looked enormous disappeared almost overnight. And that's what makes this team different from most failed super teams. We actually saw enough to know the basketball could work. When Durant, Harden, and Irving shared the floor, the problem wasn't figuring out whether 3 elite scorers could coexist. They could. We watched them overwhelm Boston. We watched Harden become the primary facilitator. We watched Kyrie attack defenses without having to create everything himself. And we watched Durant remain Kevin Durant. The question wasn't whether Brooklyn had enough talent. The question was whether if they could keep that talent on the floor long enough to finish the job. They couldn't. And that's why one moment will always hang over this entire story. Game 7, Kevin Durant, seconds remaining. His foot was barely on the line. If Kevin Durant is just a few inches further back, Brooklyn wins in regulation. Does Brooklyn beat Atlanta in the Eastern Conference Finals? Do they beat Phoenix in the NBA Finals? Does Harden recover? Does Kyrie return? Do all 3 decide there's no reason to ever leave? We'll never know. And that's the point. The Brooklyn Nets didn't become a dynasty. They didn't win a championship. They didn't even reach the conference final. Instead, they became one of basketball's greatest hypotheticals. What if Harden's hamstring stays healthy? What if Kyrie never injures his ankle? What if Kevin Durant's foot is behind that line? What if the big 3 actually gets 2 or 3 healthy playoff runs together? Because unlike some super teams that simply weren't good enough, Brooklyn might have been. We just never got enough time to find out. So, what really happened to the Brooklyn Nets? They gambled everything on superstar talent, and for brief moments, it looked like the gamble was going to work. But injuries robbed them of their best opportunity. Frustration damaged relationships, and eventually the stars stopped believing Brooklyn was where they wanted to finish the story. 3 superstars arrived, one by one, all 3 left. And maybe that's the craziest part. Is that the difference between failure and a completely different NBA history? might have been a couple of inches. And that's what really happened to the Brooklyn Nets. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button and subscribe. And I've got a question for y'all. If the 2021 Nets stayed healthy, were they winning the championship? I want to see the debate in the comments. I'll catch y'all next Friday.